I wanted to share something helpful and encouraging with you today because, to be honest, living with RA is a struggle. It's full of ups and downs, and you never know when you're going to get a flare, and when you do, we find ourselves wondering, why did this happen? So it's just a roller coaster. But recently, I came across something that gave me a new perspective, and I wanted to share it with you. And I hope you watch this entire video from start to finish, because each one of these elements, I hope, gives you a new perspective as well, like it did me. I love learning, especially psychology and human behavior. I don't know what it is. I just love hearing stories about people who have accomplished something. And so recently I watched a free online seminar by Tony Robbins because I kind of wanted to study his analysis and how he helps people. And normally his content is geared towards business leaders or entrepreneurs or athletes or sometimes the generalized public. But I specifically wanted to study his content to see if his concepts could apply to someone like us living with a chronic illness. So first, I'm just going to share with you some of the concepts that he covered, and then I'm going to go into them in further detail. So first of all, he talks about the state of mind. Either you are in a peak state or a poor state. Then he also talks about physiology, your body, your nervous system. He also talks about identity, language, focus, and then purpose. And as I listened, I realized that RA, by its very nature, puts us in a poor state, or a poor state of mind, physically and mentally. The pain, the fatigue, and mobility issues that we experience fuels that fire for a poor mental state, or feeling stuck. In our case, it's not just an emotional response, it's a reality that we face daily. And this is why it's so hard to break free and go into what Tony calls a peak state. So how do we work against this? Is there anything that we can actually do? So let's go through these different categories or concepts and talk about how we can shift our mindset despite the limitations that RA places on us. So first, the mental state and physiology. So what I noticed in his seminar, especially on the online one, is he gets people out of their seats and jumping up and down and moving their arms, moving their body. And for someone with RA, we can't really do that. We can't sometimes get up and, maybe we can stand up, but we can't jump around or do jumping jacks, those sort of things. But there is a mind-body connection. And so the state of our mind and body is the most powerful factor in our performance. Not our intelligence, not our skill, but what he calls our state. So he asks people, could you describe someone's position, their body structure, if they were depressed or bored or ticked off? What is their posture like? Where are their eyes? Where are they looking? How are they breathing? What are the expressions on their face? Things like that. If you compare and contrast it to someone who is in a peak state, who is in a performance state, in a happy state, their posture and everything is going to look totally different. So when we compare that to when we're in a flare, what is our state? We're slumped over, our breathing is shallow, your body is stiff. I know when I am in serious pain, I even kind of moan in pain because it's so bad. And our energy is drained. We just can't help it. But that posture alone reinforces a negative state and a negative emotion. It is like our body is telling our brain that we're defeated. And we don't want that. Tony teaches people how to snap out of it, how to stand taller and move their body and breathe deeply. Now, obviously, we can't jump around like he suggests. That's one of the biggest challenges of RA. We sometimes don't have the ability to change our physical state the way a healthy person can. But that doesn't mean we can't participate and do what we can. So what I realized is, even with our limitations, we can still shift our state in smaller ways. Maybe we can't do jumping jacks, but we can adjust our posture while we're sitting. We can take a few deep breaths and count in and count out. We can listen to music that energizes us, or even just changing our environment, like stepping outside for fresh air. It's about finding what works for us within our physical limits. Another thing that really stood out to me was about identity and the I am statements, and how much our identity shapes our mindset. And Tony talks about the power of I am statements. For a long time, I didn't want to continue making videos about rheumatoid arthritis, especially in the beginning, because I didn't want this channel to become my identity. I didn't want to be known for my illness. When I originally started this YouTube channel, it was about video creation, filming, editing, and YouTube tips, because that's what I do. I teach video editing and I'm a video editor. Since I'm a creator, Sharing my diagnosis story was my creative outlet of sharing what was going on in my personal life. But I didn't want my identity to be wrapped up in my illness. If you're watching this channel, that's what you know me for, but ultimately that's not what I wanted my identity to be. So I was struggling with that in the beginning. But then as I started to gain subscribers and comments, I realized that telling my story and sharing with others is building a community, and it also helps others to not feel so alone. And ultimately, it helps me not feel so alone, and it helps me to feel understood, especially when I live in a world that doesn't understand rheumatoid arthritis, and I'm completely misunderstood. But here's what I realized. RA is a part of my life, but it doesn't define who I am at my core, my identity. Instead of saying, I am sick, I can say, I am strong. Instead of saying, I am always exhausted all the time, I can say, I am doing my best today. These small shifts in language may not seem like much, but over time, they rewire our brains to see ourselves differently. And when we see ourselves differently and we have a better identity and a stronger identity, it comes through in our emotions and our bodies feel it. Really amazing what that can do. When it changes our emotions, it ultimately changes how we view life, how we view the day, how we view our pain. We can see it as something that we can overcome, and that it eventually makes us stronger in the end. It's about who we are becoming. So next, focus and beliefs. So Tony says, the quality of our life is the quality of our emotions. And our emotions are driven by what we focus on. RA forces us to focus on pain, fatigue, and limitations. And that's not our fault, it's just the nature of the disease. But what I have learned is, even though we cannot change our circumstances, we can change our focus. For example, instead of focusing on what I can't do, I will focus on what I can do. Maybe I can't go for a long walk today with my dog, but I can do some stretching. Maybe I can't make a huge meal for my family, but I can make something simple. The more we shift our focus onto positive things, and especially gratitude and what we're thankful for, the less power RA has over our emotions. Next, purpose and breaking cycles. One of the most powerful things that Tony teaches is about finding purpose in life. Because when we have a purpose, we have a reason to keep going, even on the hardest days. For me, I realized that making these videos and sharing my story and experience gives me purpose. It helps me to connect with others who truly understand what it's like living with RA. And having that purpose makes it easier to push through on the hard days. But purpose doesn't have to be something big. It can be anything that gives you a sense of meaning. It could be a hobby, a relationship, or a personal goal. The key is to not allow RA to steal that from you. And along with purpose, what gives us a reason to keep going on the hard days is also hope. We have to have hope for tomorrow. We have to have hope for remission because it is possible. We don't know exactly what steps we need to take yet, but we do know that it's a possibility and an opportunity. And so we can never give up hope. And next, meditation and managing the mental overload. One of the things that has really helped me lately is meditation, and I started learning about this actually a couple of weeks ago through a book called Wherever You Go, There You Are. And I also started to use this free app called the Insight Timer. This app is free, and it actually has specific guided meditations specifically for pain management. Now, meditation doesn't take the pain away, but what it does for me is it stops my mind from spiraling out of control. Instead of thinking, what if my RA gets worse? What if I have a flare tomorrow? What if it never gets better? What if I have to have a knee replacement? I just spiral. Or what if I can't do this anymore? What if my next medication doesn't work? What if I have side effects? It just goes on and on. What meditation does is it helps you to be in the present moment. It calms your mind, you focus on your breathing, and when we stop feeding our fear, we stop giving it power. And just a couple weeks ago, before I started reading that book, I was completely new to meditation. I had absolutely no idea about it. I knew a lot about prayer. I have practiced prayer my entire life, but I never knew about meditation. And it's a very ancient practice, actually, but it has so many scientific benefits. You have to look this up. It's super amazing what meditation does to the brain and to the body. And so that highly correlates to the mind-body connection. And it can do a lot for pain management, for stress, anxiety, and for sleep, which we all need help with, especially with RA. So I highly recommend that you do your own investigation and do your own research into meditation and check out that insight timer. You can also find some other guided meditation videos on YouTube, but specifically look for ones for pain management. Is super amazing and very, very helpful. And it is something that Tony recommends, but I also recommend it too. One huge lesson that I took away from this seminar, which may seem obvious to you, but I don't know why, just in this particular moment in my life, I needed to hear this reality. He said, everyone experiences extreme stress. For some reason, I used to think, and maybe you did too, or do, that only certain people go through extreme stress, or that it is like a matter of luck or something. But the reality is no one is exempt. And I also used to think that it had to do with our choices, that if we made good choices, we'll have good outcomes or good circumstances. And while that is true, even if you make really good choices, you can't avoid stressful situations. They happen to everyone. So what he said was, we can't control the external world. What we can control is our internal world, our emotions, our thoughts, our habits, our beliefs, our I am statements, what our identity is. And our habits play such a huge role in all of this. Negative habits can trap us in stress, fatigue, but positive habits can shift us into a better state, mentally and physically. When we train our body and our minds with better habits, we rewire our nervous system to handle challenges much differently. Every experience, even the difficult ones, make us stronger. And ultimately, the quality of our life is the quality of our emotions. Tony also talks about that the purpose of life is to grow. When we grow, we have something to give. And when we grow and give, we feel totally alive. Our struggles, especially with RA, push against us just like resistance in a workout. But resistance is what makes us stronger. And every single day, we have the opportunity to build that strength, even in small ways. He also shared a very powerful lesson that he learned from Norman Vincent Peale, who was the author of The Power of Positive Thinking. And he said, the only people who are without problems are in cemeteries. Problems are not a sign that there is something wrong in our lives. Problems are a part of life itself. It's easy to get caught up trying to achieve a goal, but real fulfillment doesn't come from just reaching the destination. It is who we become in the process. And this is the essence of the hero's journey: overcoming obstacles, growing through the challenges, and finding purpose in the experiences. So what can we do? What practical tips and daily habits can we apply to our daily lives if we are living with RA and we want to improve? How can we apply Tony Robbins' concepts to us and our daily lives? It's all about shifting our mental state from a poor state to peak state, and a better state mentally and physically. So my first tip is a good sleep routine. Going to bed at the same time every day and getting up at the same time every day. Good sleep hygiene makes a big difference. And it can also help with energy levels. And number 2, gentle movement. We can't always go for a run or maybe do jumping jacks, but we can do simple stretches or maybe go for a short walk. Even a few minutes of stretching and walking can make a huge difference for us. And number 3, nourishing foods. We can choose healthy foods that fuel our bodies instead of inflaming it. And number 4, meditation and prayer. This is something that we can incorporate into our daily habits that will ultimately calm our mind and calm our body. That's the goal. Number 5, we can take our medications consistently and stay in touch with our doctor and stay on top of what works for us and make changes if necessary. And lastly, we can let go of fear, accepting that we can't control the future, but we can control how we approach today. So my final thoughts. RA automatically puts us into a poor state, as what Tony would explain, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and it's something that we just can't help. And that's what makes it so much harder to pull ourselves out of that vicious cycle. But if there's one thing that I've learned, is that we do have the power over our mindset and what we focus on. Even if we can't always change our physical condition, we can still take steps to shift our mental focus, to shift our mental and emotional state, so that RA doesn't steal our joy, our purpose, or our life. I hope this video has given you something to think about, and let me know in the comments below. Have you tried any of these mindset shifts? And what's helped you in your journey? And I'll see you in the next video, friends. Bye.